Chapter 1221, Love Comes. Chapter 1221, Love Comes. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Hearing that his brother was arranging for him to claim immortal Gu from the treasury, Fang Yuan smiled. In his case, he did not lack immortal Gu. Forget about rank 6 immortal Gu, Fang Yuan even had many rank 7 immortal Gu. As for rank 8, Fang Yuan had attitude Gu, years flow like water immortal Gu, and wisdom sword immortal Gu. Right now, the most important one was attitude Gu. Wisdom sword immortal Gu needed rank 8 immortal essence, while years flow like water had a huge drawback of attracting immemorial year beasts. But in terms of numbers, Fang Yuan had more rank 8 immortal Gu than Wu Yong. He even had rank 9 wisdom Gu. Although, strictly speaking, wisdom Gu did not belong to Fang Yuan. Inside Wu clan's treasury, there were indeed many useful or powerful immortal Gu, and there was a high chance that many immortal Gu suited Fang Yuan's needs. But deep down, Fang Yuan clearly understood, at this juncture, there was one thing that he needed the most. Dream Realm. As long as he could enter the Dream Realm, Fang Yuan could use Unravel Dream to rapidly raise his attainment levels. When his attainment levels rise, he would be able to annex more immortal apertures. Unlike now, he was restricted by his attainment levels, he could not annex many blessed lands. There were relatively few Gu immortals. In a single region, there were merely several hundred Gu immortals, most of them were rank 6, few were rank 7, and rank 8 Gu immortals were usually the ones at the peak. Among these Gu immortals, Fang Yuan could only annex some of the rank 6 and 7 immortal apertures. And among these, only those which he had suitable attainment levels could be annexed. He could not go to Central Continent. As for the other 4 regions, there were many Gu immortals that Fang Yuan could not touch. Like those with close relationships to rank 8 Gu immortals, or those who were hard to find, or people like Feng Jiu Gu and Shirlei. Therefore, at the end of the day, Fang Yuan did not have many immortal apertures to annex. Earlier, he could annex a lot and raise his cultivation level. On one hand, it was Fang Yuan's accumulation, he had killed many Gu immortals and obtained a lot of information, but on the other hand, Fang Yuan had sufficient luck. Raising his attainment levels in all the different paths had great benefits for Fang Yuan. It increased the range of his choices drastically. He would be able to annex even more immortal apertures. Earlier, I annexed immortal apertures and raised my cultivation level from rank 6 to 7. But after reaching rank 7, annexing rank 6 immortal apertures to skip calamities and tribulations has a far smaller effect. My cultivation level is rising at an unavoidably slower speed. But after raising my attainment levels in different paths, my rank 7 cultivation level would start to climb up rapidly again. The speed would not be as fast as before, after all, rank 7 immortal apertures are very rare, but compared to normal cultivation, it is still extremely shocking. Of course, Fang Yuan could not estimate the actual speed. Because it depended on the situation. If he was lucky enough, he would be able to annex many rank 7 blessed lands at once. With enough of them, he would rise to rank 8, it was not impossible. This was the power of the sovereign immortal aperture. Spectral Soul had spent 100,000 years, sacrificing Shadow Sect and Zombie Alliance to create this immortal Gu, there was good reason for it. For ordinary Gu immortals, this cultivation method was impossible. However, there are not many rank 7 blessed lands. Even if I add up all 5 regions, I can forget about advancing to rank 8 for now. Fang Yuan thought about it, the chances of becoming rank 8 immediately were too slim. He had a clear mind. Fang Yuan was not overly greedy, he knew what was important, and what was less of a concern. Thus, facing Wu Yong, he said, I do not need to go to the treasury, I know what I want. Oh. Wu Yong was surprised. Next, Fang Yuan said the names of 2 immortal Gu, one was rank 6, the other was rank 7. Wu Yong was even more surprised now, he looked at Fang Yuan deeply, having understood what he wanted. But he still pretended to be unaware, these 2 immortal Gu are part of the Super Gu formation, they have been used already to encircle that giant dream realm. Are you sure you want them? Fang Yuan nodded without any hesitation, showing that he had made his decision. In order to create the Super Gu formation and protect the dream realm, the righteous path forces in southern border had contributed both manpower and resources. Wu clan put in 6 immortal Gu, there was no need to conceal this information. Fang Yuan had learned about it from Qiao clan's Gu immortals. As for why he chose these 2 immortal Gu, it was because they were extremely crucial to the operations of the Super Gu formation. One could say, if Fang Yuan became the owner of these immortal Gu, he would have the biggest say in the Super Gu formation. Fang Yuan continued to speak earnestly, "Brother, you have been in the clan since you were born, you have the support of Southern Border's strongest super force. But I am different, I grew up in Eastern Sea without anyone's help. I am a lone cultivator, you have never been a lone cultivator, you will not know our pain. Therefore, this time, I thought of coming to Southern Border, to join Wu clan, I do not want to go back to Eastern Sea anymore. I admit that I have my ambitions, but which Gu immortal has no ambition? Brother, I will speak the truth. You are a rank 8 Gu immortal, you have rank 8 immortal Gu, you are the first supreme elder of Wu clan, you live freely in Wu clan. As for me, I came from Eastern Sea, I only have rank 7 cultivation level, I have some transformation path methods, but how can I compete against you? I have never thought of fighting with you. I merely want my cultivation journey to continue. Xiao clan has an alliance agreement with me, therefore they supported me to come here. I was forced to, without Xiao clan's help, I could not even attend mother's funeral. But I am still a Wu clansman, Wu clan's bloodline flows within me. My mother might have left me when I was a baby, but she had asked me to return in her final days. No matter what she thinks, she is still my birth mother all along. These last few days, I have been thinking, the dream realm's location is where I want to go. I am willing to leave Wu clan and cultivate there forever. All I want is some support from the clan, so that I would not be without cultivation resources. That way, I will be satisfied. Fang Yuan spoke with sincerely, it was a moving speech. Towards the end, his eyes even turned red, he bowed deeply to Wu Yong. Wu Yong was moved. He left his seat, going towards Fang Yuan and grabbing his shoulders. My brother. He spoke, his voice was trembling, his expression was agitated. You are my younger brother, we have the same mother. I understand your intentions. I understand your hardships, and I am glad that you understand my difficulties. Since that is so, I will agree to your request. Do not forget what you said today. Elder brother. Fang Yuan choked, tears falling down from the corners of his eyes, I will not forget today's words. Brother is granting my wish, I will support you fully. In the future, unless brother agrees, I will not act on my own and step into Wu clan's headquarters at all. I will also not interact with Wu clan's Gu immortals excessively. Wu Yong grabbed Fang Yuan's hands, patting the back of his hands, you will not let me down, and I will not let you down. A moment later, Fang Yuan left the hall. Finally, I can go to the Super Gu formation and openly explore the dream realm. The excitement in his heart could not be described to others. Meanwhile, Wu Yong sat down on his seat, having a deep gaze in his eyes. My younger brother knows what's best for him, he is clear of the current situation. Not bad indeed. He did not mention the immortal Gu inheritance at all, and even volunteered to leave Wu clan's headquarters. With his absence, I will be able to control the clan as rapidly as possible. The dream realm is also very useless. Current methods cannot excavate this mountain of treasures. As long as he guards the Super Gu formation quietly, and cultivate in peace, without trying to gain authority in Wu clan, so what if I have to give him many more times the cultivation resources he is asking for? The dream realm is like this now, but the future is not certain. After all, this is a prophecy regarding great dream immortal venerable. Speaking of which, my younger brother's ambitions are not small. However, just as he said, who has no ambitions? It is not scary to have ambitions, it is scary if your ambitions are so big you cannot recognize your own limits, and do something stupid beyond your abilities. For example, Xiao Clan, Humph. Central Continent, Spirit Affinity House. Zhao Lianyun knelt on the ground like a statue. The house in front of her was shut tight, there was no disturbance. Feng Jin Huang no longer lived here. Zhao Lianyun knew this, but she still continued to kneel here. Because she knew that this was her only hope. She had to grab onto it, because other than this, there were no other options. At this moment, Zhao Lianyun's legs were numb, she was so tired she felt dizzy. In her daze, memories of the past surfaced in her mind. There was a grassland with budding wild flowers. This flower is for you, Lady Xiao Yun, they say that women love flowers. Ma Hongyun brought a bunch of flowers with him as he stood in front of Zhao Lianyun, smiling sheepishly. It stinks. Zhao Lianyun covered her nose, saying in disgust, "What flowers did you pick? These smelly fly flowers only grow on top of animal feces. Take them away from me." Ma Hongyun was stunned, he answered, "Precisely because they grow on feces, they are big and strong." Zhao Lianyun was rolling her eyes, she stepped on Ma Hongyun's leg angrily, "Get lost. Fool. Why are you finding me flowers? You should think of how to please your young master. You idiot." Ma Hongyun was jumping from the pain, he said meekly, "I wanted to thank you, thanks for lying for me, otherwise, I would have been executed for stealing shoes." Scenes of the past faded gradually, Zhao Lianyun returned to the cold hard reality. Big fool. But, what am I doing now? I seem like a fool too, huh? To think that I, Zhao Lianyun, would act so foolishly as well. You always do foolish things, but the results always end up good. I am not you, but, this is the only thing that I can do. I am just a normal person. Thinking of this, tears rolled down Zhao Lianyun's eyes, the grief and agony in her heart could not be described with words. At this time, in her blurry vision, she saw a Gu. Rank 9. Love Gu. It was flying in front of Zhao Lianyun. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1222, Current Generation Fairy, Zhao Lianyun. Chapter 1222, Current Generation Fairy, Zhao Lianyun. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Rank 9 Love Gu. Zhao Lianyun did not recognize this Gu worm, but that did not stop her from noticing this Gu worm's uniqueness. Because in her vision, this Gu worm had become the center of the world, its body was glowing with multicolored lights, the entire Gu worm seemed to be the hottest flame burning in the universe. All of reality would be overturned, everything in this world would revolve around it. Is this a miracle? Zhao Lianyun's face was covered in tears, a final thought was produced in her mind. Next, she fell onto the ground, falling unconscious. Spirit Affinity House was in a commotion. Love Gu, it was the signature immortal Gu of Spirit Affinity House. It flew out of its resting place to Zhao Lianyun's side. Most importantly, when Zhao Lianyun was unconscious, it did not fly away, it remained on her shoulder. That night, Spirit Affinity House recalled all of the Gu immortals in the sect, holding an emergency meeting to discuss this matter. Spirit Affinity House's first Supreme Elder, second Supreme Elder, and third Supreme Elder, Feng Jiugu, Fairy Baiqing, Su Hao, Li Juning, and the others had gathered, the auras of immortals mixed together, the highest number of Gu immortals from Spirit Affinity House had gathered together for the first time in hundreds of years. Everyone, we know about the rules of the sect. Now that Love Gu has acknowledged Zhao Lianyun, she is the sect's current generation fairy. Su Hao spoke expressionlessly, but intense joy could be felt from his tone. Back then, he had advised Zhao Lianyun, he was just trying to target Feng Jin Huang and damage her reputation, to elevate Zhao Lianyun's own prestige. He did not think that Zhao Lianyun would be so stubborn, continuing to kneel there without giving up. Su Hao was helpless about this. He nurtured Zhao Lianyun and used her as a chess piece to deal with Feng Jin Huang. His real goal was to attack Feng Jin Huang's father, Feng Gu. A place with people interacting would have internal and external conflicts. When an organization is big, there would be many factions in it. Right now, the Feng faction with Feng Gu at the lead had the greatest authority in Spirit Affinity House. Su Hao, Li Juning, and the others were suppressed by the Feng faction, unable to lift their heads. Thankfully, Spirit Affinity House's 2 rank 8 Gu immortals, first Supreme Elder and second Supreme Elder, were impartial. They did not side with anyone, only looking at the benefits of Spirit Affinity House. This allowed Su Hao and Li Juning to remain as part of the sect's core authority, despite the Feng faction's power. Zhao Lianyun knelt and begged Feng Jin Huang. Most people could only see the surface of the matter, only a few understood that this was a political conflict in Spirit Affinity House. Zhao Lianyun was a mere mortal, but after inheriting the thieving heaven true inheritance, she was qualified to compete with Feng Jin Huang for the position of Spirit Affinity House's fairy. Su Hao made Zhao Lianyun his political tool. Originally, Su Hao was thinking that he could not let Zhao Lianyun kneel anymore. In his opinion, as a political performance, it was already enough. If Zhao Lianyun continued kneeling, she would be like an idiot. There were no gains for her. But several hours ago, when Su Hao heard that Love Gu had stayed by Zhao Lianyun's side of its own accord, he was stunned. After his heavy shock, he felt intense joy. He acutely sensed that this was a God-sent opportunity. This gift was too precious, he almost fainted from happiness. This was an unbelievably rare chance. He needed to use this opportunity to make Zhao Lianyun Spirit Affinity House's fairy. Then on this basis, he would retaliate against the Feng faction. This was an unprecedented opportunity for Su Hao in the sect. As long as he made use of this chance, his future in the sect would change drastically for the better. Su Hao did not doubt this. Thus, he was the first to stand up and support Zhao Lianyun for the position, to become Spirit Affinity House's current generation fairy. He spoke, "Our sect rules are clear, in choosing the fairies, first, we listen to the masses, then we look at aptitude, finally, we look at the preference of higher-ups." The meaning was, they would first see what the people in the sect thinks, before looking at the aptitude and talent of the participant, and finally, it would depend on who suited the preferences of the higher-up Gu immortals more. Su Hao continued to speak. "Right now, in terms of the masses, Zhao Lianyun might be an otherworldly demon, but she has love and loyalty. In order to save her lover, she knelt down to her opponent. The entire sect knows about her character, and in terms of aptitude, it is not important. As long as we are willing, we can raise a mortal's aptitude easily. I believe that everyone has heard of her experiences in Northern Plains. She is an elite in terms of talent. And finally, everyone's preferences. I greatly acknowledge Zhao Lianyun. I express my support towards her in becoming our fairy." "I concur." Su Hao had just said that when Li Juning added this. She was Su Hao's wife, they had the same opinion in this. This was not strange. But the following scene was shocking to others. I agree with Su Hao. I approve of Su Hao's perspective. Even Love Gu acknowledged Zhao Lianyun. What else do I have to say? Fairy Bai Qing could not stand it anymore. She felt, it seemed that everyone here agreed with Su Hao. They felt that the position of Spirit Affinity House's fairy should go to Zhao Lianyun. Fairy Bai Qing was a Gu immortal of Spirit Affinity House, but more than that, she was Feng Jin Huang's mother. The position of fairy in Spirit Affinity House was very special. She was the cultivation seed that was chosen by the entire Spirit Affinity House. Even the mortals were part of the selection process. Next, they would invest heavily in her and nurture her to become immortal. Every generation's fairy would be Spirit Affinity House's representative when they fully matured. Spirit Affinity House was an organization, and organizations not only needed old experts, but also new Gu immortals, to inject fresh blood and keep the system going smoothly. Fairy Bai Qing herself was a fairy of Spirit Affinity House. She had felt for herself the experience of having an entire sect support her cultivation. Even though Feng Jiugu and Bai Qing were both Gu immortals and could totally fund their daughter, Feng Jin Huang, for her immortal ascension easily, this type of support paled in comparison to the funding of the entire sect. Fairy Bai Qing did not want to see her daughter lose. But she understood deeply, right now, the situation was very disadvantageous for her. Because the sect rules were, in choosing a fairy, other than listening to the masses, looking at aptitude, and the higher-ups' preference, there was also an important part, that was. Once Love Gu acknowledged someone, no matter how disliked they were, or how bad their aptitude was, or even how badly received they were by the Gu immortal higher-ups, they would become the current generation fairy, regardless of the situation, or whether they were male or female. Because of this rule, after Su Hao finished speaking, he gained the approval of many Gu immortals. They expressed their support. In fact, Su Hao's own political force was not strong. Normally, he would not garner such support. Even though the sect rules are as such, it is not a hopeless situation. Because in our sect's history, there was a fairy that was promoted because of this rule, and in the end she. Fairy Bai Qing thought of this and was about to speak. But at this time, Feng Jiugu pressed down on her hand softly. Don't be anxious. I know, you want to mention Mo Yao, right? Back then, she was just an Inkman slave, but she gained the acknowledgement of Love Gu and was funded by the entire sect to become a Gu immortal, and even managed to reform Bo Qing. But in the end, she betrayed the sect, she defied heavenly court. Feng Jiugu transmitted. Fairy Bai Qing nodded, replying to him secretly, that's right, this is Huang Er's only hope. As long as we use this point and continue arguing, using the strength of Feng faction, we might be able to get the sect to change this rule. After all, rules are made by people, isn't that right? This sect rule does not make sense. But Feng Jiugu shook his head. He rejected Fairy Bai Qing's idea. Su Hao is a wisdom path Gu immortal, why did he not mention the sect rules in his earlier speech? He only talked about the first three conditions, and seemingly forgot about this sect rule that was most advantageous for him. Fairy Bai Qing was slightly stunned. Feng Jiugu continued, this is his scheme, his trap. If you talk about it, you will fall into his plot. Even though Bo Qing and Mo Yao had caused such a situation, the sect rules did not change. After the Battle of Tian Mountain, our sect suffered a lot of pressure, but our rules had not changed either. This is a very deep issue, there is more than meets the eye. If you want to use Feng faction's power to challenge it foolishly, wanting to change this rule, we will lose miserably. We would suffer heavy losses while Su Hao would be completely intact, that is what he wants to see. Fairy Bai Qing's body was covered in cold sweat. I was rash. She quickly calmed down. After a while, she thought about why she made such a mistake. Because it involved Huang Er, I became confused due to love. No, there is another reason, I became a rank 7 Gu immortal and gained rank 7 immortal Gu, compared to before, I was overconfident. Because I am in the righteous path, battle strength is not everything. If hubby did not remind me today, I would have committed a huge mistake. Thinking of this, Fairy Bai Qing unconsciously looked at Feng Jiugu. She felt a strong feeling of protection from him. Even though Feng Jiugu was from the demonic path, after all these years he had demonstrated his skills. Being in the sect did not require just battle strength, his political abilities were also far superior to her, otherwise, how could his Feng faction have such brilliance today? Since you can expose Su Hao's trap, I will entrust this matter to you. Fairy Bai Qing transmitted secretly, there was sweet affection in her tone. Feng Jiugu smiled bitterly, this matter, I am not going to interfere. Because interfering is of no use. What do you mean? Fairy Bai Qing was stunned. Feng Jiugu did not speak, he looked at the sky. He did not fall for it. Su Hao was originally waiting for someone to jump out, but nobody objected to his words, even Feng Jiugu was keeping silent, he felt that it was a pity. But he quickly collected his thoughts, feeling confident inside, forget it. Since nobody objected, this matter is decided. But First Supreme Elder suddenly said, I have understood everyone's stances. But Zhao Lianyun has a special background, she is an otherworldly demon. I will report the result of our discussion to the higher-ups, they will decide themselves. What? Su Hao was completely stunned. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1223, Entering the Gu Formation Openly. Chapter 1223, Entering the Gu Formation Openly. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Southern Border. The remains of Tian Mountain. Lord Wu Yi, this way please. Wuan bowed as he led the way. Fong Yuan nodded. In front of him, an entrance opened in the Super Gu Formation. Please, Lord, enter first. Wuan gave way as he smiled affectionately. Wu Yi's identity was now known to almost everyone in Southern Border's Gu immortal world. Fong Yuan arrived directly and became Wu Clan's person in charge for the Super Dream Realm. Wuan with only rank 6 cultivation level was his direct subordinate, he had to curry favor. Fong Yuan had yet to take over the role, but Wuan had already flown out of the Super Gu Formation, staying at a mountain for 2 days and 2 nights 100 li away, just to receive Fong Yuan when he arrived. When he saw Fong Yuan, he immediately lowered himself and stuck to Fong Yuan like a fly. Whatever he was asked, he answered to the best of his abilities. If Fong Yuan wanted to kick his butt, he would definitely move his butt over to Fong Yuan's leg so that he could kick it more conveniently. But this was exactly why he gave Fong Yuan a good understanding of all the Gu immortals who were here from different clans defending the Super Gu Formation, as well as this current situation. Fong Yuan did not stand on ceremony with Wuan, he entered first as Wuan followed after him, smiling and lowering his head. Many Gu immortals were looking at this scene secretly. Wu Yi is here. Not long ago, he used Wu Clan's immortal killer move and got rid of his status as an Eastern Sea Gu immortal. He is now a true member of Southern Border. Ba Quan Fong said as he observed the expression of the Gu immortal beside him carefully. It was none other than the publicly recognized strongest rank 7 expert in Southern Border's Gu immortal world, Old Treeman Bada. Bada retracted his gaze, saying plainly, "Let's observe for now." Saying this, he turned around and left. It seemed like Wu Yi's appearance was just an insignificant matter to him. Ba Quan Fong was disappointed. He wanted to see Bada's reaction. Wu Yi was here but he was a newbie, be it in the Super Gu Formation, or in Southern Border's Gu immortal world, he was a newcomer. Wu Du Xiu died, Wu Clan only had one rank 8 Gu immortal left, Wu Yong, their strength had fallen drastically, many clans were waiting to strike. Especially the strong Ba clan. In the past, when Wu Clan was strong, Ba Quan Fong had many opinions about it. Now that one of Wu Clan's rank 8 Gu immortals was dead, and a newcomer, Wu Yi, was here, he unavoidably had some notions of suppressing him to vent his frustration. Unfortunately, Bada said that they would observe for now. After all, nobody knew about Wu Yi's strength and methods. Bada was a dependable and experienced old schemer. If Wu Yi was naive or had low strength, he would not mind making Ba Clan the main controller of this Super Gu Formation. Inside the Super Gu Formation, there was space inside, that surrounded the entire Super Dream Realm, forming something like a giant city. Each segment was guarded by one clan. The 13 righteous path forces split the space in this Super Gu Formation into 13 portions. The space that Wu Clan occupied was huge, it was one of the largest among the 13. The only clan that was comparable to them was Ba Clan. Even Tai Clan and Shang Clan were inferior. Fong Yuan entered it, and because he had information provided by Wu Clan, and he had his lackey, Wuan, he did not lose his way. Soon, he found his way to the core, and met with another Gu immortal from Wu Clan, Wu Liao. This person had broad shoulders and a thin waist, he looked very brave and heroic, there was a needle-like beard under his chin. He greeted Fong Yuan without any tone of submission. "Greetings to Lord Wu Yi. Please pardon me for not receiving you, I was tasked to stay here." His tone was calm, pride was rooted in him. Fong Yuan felt very amused. Wuan and Wu Liao, they both had rank 6 cultivation level, but their attitudes were a stark contrast. Now that Wu Yi was here, all of Wu Clan's stationed Gu immortals were here in the Super Gu Formation. Originally, there was a rank 7 Gu immortal. But since Fong Yuan came, he was sent off elsewhere. Wu clan was huge, it was the #1 force in southern border's righteous path, but it did not have many Gu immortals that could be used. Every Gu immortal was a portion of strength that needed to be used wisely and carefully, in the right areas. Let's solve the main issues first. I am sure you know about our clan's orders. Bring me to refine my 2 immortal Gu. Fang Yuan said. This was the first important mission. Wu Liao saw that Wu Yihai worked at a rapid speed, he felt a sense of acknowledgement towards him. Wu quickly ran to Fang Yuan's side, smiling in a fawning manner, "Lord, this way please, I will bring you there now." A moment later, Fang Yuan successfully refined the 2 immortal Gu. Refining other people's immortal Gu was not easy. But with Wu clan's cooperation, it was a different story. Fang Yuan finally let out a sigh of relief. He knew, Wu clan's treasury definitely had immortal Gu that were better or more suited for himself. But he still chose these 2 immortal Gu regardless. He did this because he had his own considerations. With these 2 immortal Gu, Fang Yuan could plant his roots into this super Gu formation. From now on, even if Wu clan wanted to move Fang Yuan away, they had to consider this point. This super Gu formation was already established, every immortal Gu was tightly linked, changing a single one would adversely affect it. Every immortal Gu that each clan controlled was also the investment that the clan was putting into the giant dream realm, it affected the distribution of power and authority that the respective clans had in this place. "Lord, I have prepared some supper for you to eat." After Fang Yuan refined the immortal Gu, Wu quickly came over and said this to him in a subservient manner. Fang Yuan was expressionless, he responded with a grunt. Wu suddenly seemed like he had heard some heavenly music, he quickly led the way joyfully, "Lord, this way please." Wu Liao snorted coldly, showing disdain in his eyes, he did not like Wu's fawning. But Fang Yuan said, "Wu Liao, follow us, I have some things to ask you too." "Yes, Lord." Wu Liao replied respectfully. The banquet was indeed not bad, the dishes and wines were very delicious. Fang Yuan sat at the main seat while Wu and Wu Liao sat on his left and right. Fang Yuan knew that there was a possibility of bias and misinformation, he could not listen to Wu's words alone. Thus, during the banquet, he asked the 2 of them many questions. Wu and Wu Liao answered respectfully. After the banquet ended, Fang Yuan gained an even clearer understanding of the situation at the Super Gu formation, there was a vivid picture in his mind. In Fang Yuan's plan, for a long time in the future, he was going to cultivate here secretly. He had to be clear of the environment here. The righteous path and demonic path was different, the demonic path acted freely while the righteous path talked about rules. What were the rules of the righteous path? It was nothing more than just customs created over a long period of time, rules of a game that involved the distribution of benefits. Fang Yuan understood that since he came here using Wu Yihai's identity, he had to settle matters using righteous path methods. If he used demonic path methods here, his enemies would laugh happily, and his clan would distance themselves from him. Even if Wu Yong sides with his brother, he would not be able to endure the pressure, for the sake of the clan, he would need to move Fang Yuan elsewhere. After all, Wu clan was led by Wu Yong. Wu clan was once the dominant clan, but Ba clan, Shang clan, and Tai clan were not willing to be under Wu clan. Xiao clan was Wu clan's most loyal ally. But after Wu Duxiu's death, the situation had changed greatly. Ba clan was stirring and ready to strike, especially when old Treeman Bada was the one sent here to guard the dream realm. With just this, Fang Yuan could acutely sense that from now on, Ba clan was going to be his main competitor. As for Xiao clan, Fang Yuan felt somewhat of a headache. He came here, he had gone against the agreement with Xiao clan. As for what Xiao clan's attitude would be and how much support they would give him, Fang Yuan was uncertain. After the banquet, Fang Yuan sent Wu and Wu Liao away, resting alone. Before leaving, Wu wanted to say some things, but he was very hesitant about it. Wu Liao left quietly, he had an improving opinion of Fang Yuan after this. During the banquet, he asked very precise questions, even though Wu Liao had difficulties answering them, he felt confident in Fang Yuan's abilities as a result. For righteous path Gu immortals, their own strength was the foundation, but it was not enough, they needed to be skilled in political methods as well. However, after the banquet, for the next few days, Fang Yuan did not show up in public. He was hiding in his own room, cultivating. Is this Wu Yihai really just a lone cultivator? Fang Yuan's actions were very much resembling lone cultivators. This made many Gu immortals who were observing him secretly make such a guess. Wu Liao was a bit disappointed. He wanted a superior that could suppress the situation, not someone who was purely cultivating. Wuan felt very uneasy. These last days, he had invited Fang Yuan with all sorts of reasons. But Fang Yuan rejected them all. He even said that he should not be disturbed if there were no important matters. Wuan could not tell what Fang Yuan's thoughts were. As time passed, his anxiety turned into fear. And behind Wuan, there were also Gu immortals from other clans. They were also very anxious. The reason was simple. The immortal opportunity business. Back then, they could do the immortal opportunity business because Wu clan had led them, colluding with several clans Gu immortals to undergo this trade secretly. The original Wu clan rank 7 Gu immortal left. Wu Yihai was moved here. The immortal opportunity business thus had to stop, because the person in charge of Wu clan over here was Wu Yihai. Most importantly, he controlled 2 immortal Gu. Wuan was fawning over Fang Yuan so desperately, other than wanting to gain his protection, he also wanted to salvage the immortal opportunity business. Wuan obtained a lot of benefits from this. Without these benefits urging him, he would not have been so enthusiastic towards Fang Yuan. Initially, interactions between Fang Yuan and Wuan were developing well. But soon, Fang Yuan acted abnormally. Wuan was at a loss. The immortal opportunity business could not be exposed. If it was known publicly, they would be held responsible. This was an act of corruption. It was information that could be used against them. Without dragging Fang Yuan into this, Wuan felt uneasy. Gritting his teeth, he decided to take a risk. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1224, White Rabbit Seduction, 1/2. Chapter 1224, White Rabbit Seduction, 1/2. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. This servant greets Lord Wu Yihai. The female Gu immortal knelt down before Fang Yuan's feet. She wore a white fur coat. It only wrapped around her chest and lower body. A large portion of her snow-white skin was exposed. Her ears were like rabbit ears, her eyes were red like rubies, her nose was small and delicate. She had an extremely cute appearance. In terms of beauty, she was only inferior to Xianxia and Feng Jin Huang. At this moment, this female immortal was kneeling on the ground. Her forehead was touching the floor. Her huge chest was squeezed by the floor, experiencing a change in form. And her butt was high in the sky, attracting people's gazes. She was none other than Lady White Rabbit. Right now, she was pure yet wild. She was cute and embarrassed. Especially with her subservient attitude, when men see her, they would feel something emerging in their crotches. They would want to hug her tightly and give her some well-deserved love. Fang Yuan was feeling strange. Not long ago, he had offered this woman some cultivation resources in exchange for information on the Gu immortal world. To think that now, this woman would be kneeling before his feet, subjecting herself to whatever he wanted to do. This is an attempt to seduce me. This Wuan took a risk and lied to me, saying that some important person wanted to report matters to me, therefore enabling Lady White Rabbit to meet me. It seems that these last few days, I had been secluded for too long. They are anxious now. They even used this method. The method is old and cliched, but it is very effective. Fang Yuan smiled, standing up from his seat, slowly walking towards Lady White Rabbit. Lady White Rabbit's forehead did not leave the concrete floor. With Fang Yuan's sharp eyes, he could see that Lady White Rabbit was trembling. She was nervous. Fang Yuan thought, he had interacted with Lady White Rabbit before, and with his 500 years of cultivation, he could tell that this woman was a pure lone cultivator. To think that she would offer her own body, this must be her first time doing this. Of course, Fang Yuan's judgment could be wrong, but there were likely to be few people in the 5 regions who could deceive him this thoroughly. Lady White Rabbit was indeed very nervous. She was nervous, her body was trembling, her heart was pounding. Even though she knew that she had to be calm and follow Wu En's words, she could not do it. Knowing was easy, doing was hard. Turns out seductions are not so easy after all. Lady White Rabbit sighed internally. Other than this, she felt some shame and anger, as well as disbelief. I am actually doing something like this. Why am I doing this? I am trying to seduce a man I have never even met before. Lady White Rabbit felt very strange, this was not something she would normally do. Before this, she was a pure lone cultivator, having no conflicts in the world, she cultivated in peace and quiet. If anyone told her that she would be on her knees doing this in the future, she would definitely fight that person without doubt. Why did it come to this? Lady White Rabbit thought about it, she had good connections with people, so one day, Wu En came to her and said that he had a huge fortune to share with her. Back then, Lady White Rabbit was very wary and suspicious, why would something so good come to her? She felt that maybe Wu En was trying to cheat her money and body. But no. Lady White Rabbit managed the immortal opportunity business, she became the middleman, both demonic path and lone immortals had basis to trust her. Of course, the initial business was not good. But afterwards, when word got out, the Gu immortals gradually understood this business, and people started to flood towards her endlessly. After every business transaction, Lady White Rabbit would take a cut of the profits. Very soon, her total wealth had reached the level of her accumulation in the last tens of years. Lady White Rabbit was shocked and joyful. The business was getting better, she felt that each new day would be brighter. But an unexpected mishap came both suddenly, and not suddenly. Not suddenly because Lady White Rabbit knew about the matter entirely. Rank 8 Great Expert, Wu Du Xiu, of Wu Clan, passed away, her illegitimate son from Eastern Sea, Wu Yi Hai was returning to southern border, and was attacked by many forces. In the end, Wu Yi Hai survived the attacks and successfully returned to the clan, becoming a southern border Gu immortal. But it was sudden because Lady White Rabbit did not expect that this matter, which involved the entire southern border Gu immortal world, would implicate her. Wu Yi Hai, who was far apart, having a high status, had actually come over here and became the person in charge of the Super Gu formation on Wu Clan's side. The immortal opportunity business had to stop. Because this business could not be exposed. Originally, Wu Clan's rank 7 Gu immortal was the person manipulating it in the background. Now that he was gone, Wu Yi Hai came. Wu En and the rest were beneficiaries of this, but they had no ability to continue this business. Because they were not qualified to. They could not bypass Fang Yuan and continue the business either. Because this business only involved 7 clans, Ba Clan, Tai Clan, and Shan Clan were not participants. They needed a strong background to support them. Stop it here. No, of course not. All of the Gu immortals involved in the immortal opportunity business had experienced great gains and benefits, they still wanted to continue. Thus, roping Fang Yuan in was the most important matter. Wu En was tasked with this important mission, Wu Liao could not be relied on, this Gu immortal seemed young, but he was very conservative and strict with rules, he had always objected intensely to Wu Clan doing the immortal opportunity business. Wu En was very enthusiastic and attended to Fang Yuan meticulously, but he suddenly went into seclusion. This made Wu En and the Gu immortals with him extremely anxious. The situation with the demonic path and lone cultivators was terrible now. Suddenly, they could not enter and interact with the dream realm. This made the Gu immortals feel that something was wrong, were these righteous path members trying to take their cultivation resources and not holding their side of the deal. Large numbers of Gu immortals surrounded the mortal Gu house on the mountain peak. They could not find the righteous path Gu immortals, they could only surround Lady White Rabbit and shout loudly, sending threats as they demanded answers. At this moment, Lady White Rabbit realized that she was in extreme danger. If the immortal opportunity business could not continue, not only would she not have a bright future, she would be torn to shreds by these wolves, her end would definitely be miserable. In this situation, Wu En came and spoke with a glib tongue, finally convincing Lady White Rabbit. Lady White Rabbit was forced by the situation. She had no choice but to dress up like this and meet Fong Yuan, using her beauty to seduce this Gu immortal from Wu clan, so that he could come out and manage the immortal opportunity business. Raise your head. At this time, Lady White Rabbit heard Fong Yuan's order. Lady White Rabbit's body shook, her heart almost skipped a beat. She breathed in deeply, she raised her head, looking up at Fong Yuan. Fong Yuan looked down imposingly at this beautiful girl. She was sprawling on the ground, raising her head to look at him. Her eyes were large and round, her skin was white like a boiled egg, and her lips were pink and delicate, soft as flowers. It made people unable to resist the urge of exploring how they tasted, especially the exquisite pink tongue that was inside. What flavor would it have? Stand up. At this moment, Fong Yuan spoke. Lady White Rabbit was like a wooden puppet, obediently standing up. She had an exquisite and busty figure, her chest could barely be contained, but her height was only at Fong Yuan's chest level. She was like a neighbor's cute daughter. The two were less than 5 meters apart. Lady White Rabbit's heart was pounding fiercely, her breathing was rough, she was almost gasping. Next, she remembered Wu En's instructions. She stepped forward and hugged Fong Yuan. She used her jade-like arms to wrap around Fong Yuan's waist, using a seductive tone as she said, Master, please forcefully ravage this servant. She stammered as she said that, she wanted to die from shame and embarrassment. Even though she had cultivated for many years, Lady White Rabbit was still very ignorant about male and female relationships. Her only guidelines were Wu En's suggestions. White Rabbit, oh White Rabbit, how can you say such shameful words? You really said it. Her face was bright red, she was asking herself this on the inside. She found it hard to believe that this was actually her. Elsewhere, outside the place that Fong Yuan lived in, Wu En was pacing around uncertainly. He was anxious, he walked around as he rubbed his hands, they formed into fists at times. From time to time, he stopped walking, turning around to look at the tightly shut door, thinking about what could happen inside. If the immortal opportunity business stopped, and Fong Yuan refused to take over, that would mean that he did not like this idea, he would expose it. This was very possible. Wu Yihai was very young and had just joined Wu clan. He needed to prove himself to the clan. His brother was Wu Yong, he definitely had no lack of cultivation resources. For the moment, benefits were less important to him than reputation. This way, Lady White Rabbit would be done for. Even if she did not die, she would be wanted by the righteous path. She would turn from a lone immortal to a demonic path Gu immortal. Even though Wu En would not die, because Wu clan had limited Gu immortals, he would definitely need to give up the benefits that he had obtained. He would also be punished by the clan, he would be sent away and his bright future would be completely ruined due to this business. At this time, footsteps could be heard. Wu En turned and looked, only to see that this person was standing straight like a spear. His footsteps were like the wind as he emitted an imposing aura all over his body. Wu En had a bad feeling. Wu Liao, why are you here? Wu Liao snorted coldly at him, why else? Someone was shameless and wanted to seduce Lord Wu Yihai into committing a grave mistake. I am here to tell Lord everything that you have done. I want him to know your schemes and ill intentions. Wu En was so angry he was about to explode. He pointed at Wu Liao as he gritted his teeth. Wu Liao, you dare to do so? He had tried to bribe Wu Liao. But Wu Liao refused to accept it. He did not find it little, it was just his personality. Among Wu clan's Gu immortals, who would not know about Wu Liao's personality? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1225, White Rabbit Seduction, February 2nd. Chapter 1225, White Rabbit Seduction, February 2nd. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Wu Liao ignored Wu En, he bowed towards the door deeply as he shouted, Wu En has ill intentions. Wu Liao seeks an audience with Lord, I want to report him. Wu En's heart was frozen at this point. He was scared, he was fearful. He was afraid that at the next moment, this door would abruptly open and Lady White Rabbit would be thrown out with tears in her eyes. Then he, Wu-en, would be done for. But no. The door remained shut, as if Fang Yuan heard nothing. But how could this be possible? This was not an ordinary location, it was the internal space of the Super Gu formation. A huge group of palaces had formed that could accommodate people. Fang Yuan controlled two crucial immortal Gu, he was fully aware of everything going on in Wu Clan's territory inside the formation. Wu-en and Wu Liao's actions were extremely clear to Fang Yuan. How could he not hear what Wu Liao had shouted earlier? Impossible. Seeing that Fang Yuan was ignoring him, Wu Liao, who was extremely confident, was stunned. He knew that Wu-en had been trying all kinds of ways to meet Fang Yuan. Wu Liao knew the purpose of his request. Wu Liao did not obstruct him, because he knew that humans were greedy and selfish. Many people were different from him, for example, the previous rank 7 Gu immortal from Wu Clan. But afterwards, Fang Yuan did not meet Wu-en once. Realizing this, Wu Liao was extremely happy. He thought of it in his own perspective, since Fang Yuan rejected Wu-en, he was definitely unhappy with the immortal opportunity business. Indeed. How can someone of Lord Wu Yihai's status be after such small gains? He has just entered the clan, he must be concerned about his reputation, and how he would develop as a Wu clan higher-up in the future. Wu Liao guessed. Having such thoughts, he came to meet Fang Yuan, hopeful that Fang Yuan would receive him. But now, the hall's door was shut, like a wall or a tall mountain that was blocking Wu Liao's heart. Wu-en laughed heartily. He wiped the sweat off his forehead, his mind returned to a calm state. Wu Liao's request to meet was the best probe. Wu-en instantly thought that he had understood Fang Yuan's intention. Wu Liao did not believe it, he shouted again, but the doors remained shut, there was no response. Wu-en laughed even louder now, feeling very confident. He spoke, "Wu Liao, stop screaming. Lord has important matters to attend to, is it nice to disturb him like this?" Wu Liao's expression was dark and ugly. Wu-en sneered, shaking his head. Wu Liao looked down on Wu-en, while Wu-en felt that Wu Liao was too obstinate, he was not reasonable in how to deal with people and relationships. Now it seems, even though I took a risk, it paid off well. It is understandable, after all, Lady White Rabbit has a great appearance. When I first saw her in that attire, my heart almost jumped out of my mouth. I wanted so badly to cuddle her and rub all over her body. Seeing a beauty like Lady White Rabbit, as long as one is a man, they would be tempted. Lord Wu Yihai is a young and vigorous guy, he has just gotten some authority, and a beauty comes to him immediately, it can satisfy his ego. Furthermore, he was an Eastern Sea lone cultivator, while Lady White Rabbit is also a Southern Border lone cultivator. Between lone cultivators, they can understand each other and feel for each other. And the rarer thing is that Lady White Rabbit is a real virgin, when a man and woman meet, they would be like the fusion of fire and ice, he. While he was thinking that, at the next moment, something happened that caught Wu-en off guard. Only to see that the doors opened, Lady White Rabbit stood at the door, appearing before the two Wu Clan Gu immortals. What happened? She came out already? Why has it been so little time? Wu-en was extremely surprised. Lord must have heard my words and sent this female immortal out. Wu Liao was overjoyed, but when he saw Lady White Rabbit, his gaze froze. Even though he felt a little disgusted earlier, seeing Lady White Rabbit's divine beauty made his heart shook, he could not help but admit that Lady White Rabbit was beautiful. Such a short time has passed, did she not succeed? Wu-en's heart sank to rock bottom, he was in a daze, his throat went dry. But soon, he saw that Lady White Rabbit had changed her clothes, it was no longer the white fur coat from before. Also, what attracted Wu-en's attention more was that Lady White Rabbit was wearing a pair of jade earrings, they were ball-shaped and extremely thick. This was Southern Border's custom. When a woman marries and loses her virginity, she would wear such earrings, to show that she had successfully become one with her man. Wuan was overjoyed, he was extremely happy. Wu Liao's expression was pale, his eyes were sharp, he had already seen Lady White Rabbit's jade ball earrings. Did you succeed? Wuan came forward and asked carefully. Lady White Rabbit had an odd expression, but she nodded and did not speak. Wuan let out a breath of turbid air, he shut his eyes as pressure left him, he could not adapt to this feeling and nearly fell down. But, why was it so fast? Wuan had a thought, this shouldn't be, don't tell me that Lord Wu Yi is a two-pumped chump in that aspect. Such a situation is not rare in southern border, there are many guys who had cultivate until this happened to them. Hee, if that is the case, I can offer many useful goo worms to Lord in the future. But Lord Wu Yi is already a rank 7 goo immortal, with so many Dao marks in him, these goo worms might not be effective. These jade pearls were given to me by Lord Wu Yi. He has instructed me to tell you, from now on, he will mainly focus on cultivating, you can carry on with your duties, do not disturb his cultivation. Lady White Rabbit said. After she said that, Wuan looked at Wu Liao smugly with the expression of a victor. Wu Liao's body shook, he took a step back, looking at Wuan angrily as he turned and left. Lord Wuan, let's leave too. Lady White Rabbit said. Don't call me Lord, how can I, Wuan, be any lord? Just call me by my name. Wuan showed a sincere expression, as well as a courteous smile. Right now, Lady White Rabbit's status had changed. Not only did Wu Yi take Lady White Rabbit's virginity, he had given her jade pearl earrings, he acknowledged her status as his concubine. Lady White Rabbit felt Wu En's change in attitude, she had a complex feeling inside her. She spoke, actually, Wu En, Lord Wu Yi has some words especially for you. Lady, please tell me. Wu En quickly turned solemn. Lady White Rabbit said some shocking things, actually. Lord Wu Yi did not copulate with me. What? Wu En's expression turned into shock. The earlier scene appeared in Lady White Rabbit's mind again. When she went ahead to hug him with an extremely flustered feeling, a pair of strong hands grabbed her shoulders. Next, strong force was emitted in these warm hands, without allowing for any resistance, Lady White Rabbit was pushed away from Fong Yuan's body. Lady White Rabbit's expression turned pale, instantly, she felt that she failed. But at the next moment, she heard Fong Yuan's voice, when I was in Eastern Sea, I was a lone cultivator. I know the pain of a lone cultivator clearly. Some things are sweet, but you will have to pay a price if you swallow them. I am sure that now, you understand why. However, I do not want to take advantage of someone in dire straits. Saying this, Lady White Rabbit saw that a hand had stretched out towards her chest, it was holding a goo worm. This is a clothing goo, wearing it before talking to me. Fong Yuan's voice could be heard again. Lady White Rabbit obeyed him, the clothing goo turned into clothes that covered her body. When she raised her head again, she saw Fong Yuan smiling lightly at her, even though I joined Wu clan, I am still a lone cultivator at heart, it will never change. You can consider this goo worm a gift from a fellow lone cultivator, I suppose. Lady White Rabbit's heart jumped, she felt an indescribable sensation, she was extremely touched in both body and soul. At once, she started sobbing, tears formed in her eyes as her vision turned blurry. But in her blurry vision, Lady White Rabbit could feel that Fong Yuan's smile was so warm and gentle, it was like the rays of the morning sun, shining into her heart, providing warmth and protection to her. However, if you leave like this, you might not be able to answer for the consequences. I am clear about you and Wu En's intentions in coming here. Thus, bring this with you. Fong Yuan said, taking out a pair of earrings. With his abilities, creating such mortal objects would only take a thought. Lady White Rabbit received this pair of jade earrings with tears in her eyes. From today onwards, you are my attendant and mistress. Fong Yuan smiled and said. Lady White Rabbit acknowledged his words, slightly nodding. Go ahead with the immortal opportunity business. But I will not take over, if anything happens, I can help out secretly, but I will not step up officially. This is a matter that violates the interests of the other righteous path clans. After all, the entire Super Gu formation was created with everyone's effort. I have just arrived in southern border, I have yet to establish myself, I do not need these meager gains. You are so intelligent, you understand what I mean, right? Yes, I understand. Lady White Rabbit quickly answered with a shaky voice. Go back and convey my message to Wuan and the people around him. My portion of the profits will go to you. Fong Yuan sent her off. Lady White Rabbit mustered up her courage, wanting to take another look at Fong Yuan. But she did not manage to do so. She lowered her head as she walked out. The moment her back faced Fong Yuan, tears fell down her cheeks. The situation was much better than she had thought. The name of Wu Yi was engraved into the deepest part of her soul. I understand now, I understand now. After hearing Lady White Rabbit's recollection, Wu En's forehead was full of sweat, his smugness was completely gone by now. He subconsciously looked towards Fong Yuan's residence, wariness and even more so, admiration and respect was hidden in his gaze. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know in report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1226, Rules of the Righteous Path. Chapter 1226, Rules of the Righteous Path. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. On his bed, Fong Yuan slowly opened his eyes. He let out a breath of air, realizing that he was still in his bed, the surrounding arrangements were all intact. This was the defensive Gu formation that Southern Border's Righteous Path forces had created together, it was very safe. But Fong Yuan was vigilant to the core, he always considered the many possible outcomes before he did anything. Ever since rebirth, he had been cultivating endlessly, he exerted all of his effort without wasting a moment of his time on useless aspects. This sleep was the same. Fong Yuan entered his own dream realm, getting materials from his dream realm, he obtained the Gu materials for many dream path mortal Gu. If I refine them, I can get 5 to 6 dream path mortal Gu. Fong Yuan assessed. His improvement in dream path was evident. In the past, after one dream, he would only obtain a few Gu materials, to refine 1 or 2 dream path mortal Gu. But now was different, his gains had risen sharply, his efficiency in getting dream path mortal Gu also rose by many times. Of course, there was an important element, his soul. When exploring dream realms, the soul would weaken. Thus, the stronger the soul, the longer one could explore the dream realm, and the greater the backlash that they could endure from the dream realm. What was worth mentioning was, no matter how strong the soul was, it was just a basic condition for exploration. A strong soul could not allow one to freely move in the dream realm. There was a somewhat unfitting analogy for souls and dreams. The dream realm was like a desert, when souls explore it, they are like lost travelers inside the desert. The stronger the soul, the stronger the traveler's constitution, they could endure hunger and stay inside the desert for a longer time. But that did not mean that he could walk out of the desert. He did not know what direction it was, he could not create food and water inside the desert, he could not shrink the desert or leave it freely. But clear directions, creation of water and food, and modifying the desert, all of these could only be achieved by dream path at this period of time. Why, this period of time? Because when all the paths reach a certain attainment level, they can mimic other paths and attain their effects. In the future, fire path, earth path, and others can also create their own immortal killer moves that mimic dream path effects. However, there was a huge condition. That was, dream path had to be developed further as a path, and the Gu immortal trying to mimic its effect needed to be familiar with dream path and have high dream path attainment. Right now, dream path had just started being researched, all the forces and Gu immortals were suffering from exploring it, they did not have many useful gains. Even though there were quite a few dream path Gu worms and even wild dream path immortal Gu, dream path as a path itself was still very far from actually being created. It was not even properly created yet, not to mention completed. Creating a whole new path was not so easy. There were many water path Gu worms, during the immemorial antiquity era, remote antiquity era, and olden antiquity era. There were countless wild water path Gu worms. There were even people who created new water path Gu worms. But only until the medieval antiquity era did Spirit Affinity House's founder, Xianxia, finalize the path after considering all aspects, formally creating water path. Thus, Gu immortals in the 5 regions could do nothing about dream path. They knew that it was extremely valuable, but they had no way to gain from it. Many Gu immortals died in dream realms. This situation was happening everywhere, and some time ago, Southern Borders Gu immortals had suffered massive casualties from this. Precisely so, Southern Borders Righteous Path Gu immortals noticed the fact and had to slow down their exploration of the dream realm, moving forward with steady steps, carefully progressing slowly. Many Gu immortals were still very wary of the dream realm. They started to have different ideas, thus, the Immortal Opportunity business was born as a result. If the Righteous Path Gu immortals had ways to explore the dream realm, how could they give up this immense profit to the demonic and lone immortals? Thinking of the Immortal Opportunity business, Fang Yuan sat up on his bed. The Immortal Opportunity business had to exist, but at the same time, he could not be involved in it excessively. The Immortal Opportunity business had many uses. On one hand, it could give Gu immortals immense benefits. On the other hand, it could greatly reduce the conflict of the righteous path, demonic path, and lone cultivators. If the righteous path Gu immortals defended the super dream realm forcefully, what would these demonic path and lone immortals in Southern Border think? The righteous path definitely obtained a lot of benefits, but they are keeping it for themselves. If time passes, the righteous path will get stronger, while we get weaker. How can we live? These are the cultivation resources of Great Dream Immortal Venerable, who does not want to become Great Dream Immortal Venerable. Why is the righteous path allowed to hog it for themselves, without any for us? This would be their mentality. It was extremely dangerous. Southern Borders Righteous Path forces knew that if these people were forced, the demonic and lone immortals would join up and result in another battle of Tian Mountain, or result in the blood battle martial competition of Northern Plains. With this Immortal Opportunity business, the lone and demonic immortals would realize, oh, the dream realm is so dangerous, there is nothing to gain from it. At this moment, the righteous path can do nothing to it, otherwise, why would there be this business? Are they letting us experience the dream realm on purpose? Creating this dream realm business was the idea of the rank 7 Gu immortal from Wu clan. He was very astute. Unfortunately, Fang Yuan was stronger and used his brother's influence to chase this rank 7 Gu immortal away. Fang Yuan needed stability. The more stable the better. He needed a stable environment to explore the dream realms here. Thus, preventing the attacks of both lone and demonic path immortals here meant that it was necessary to continue the Immortal Opportunity business. But Fang Yuan could not participate. Because not all the righteous path clans were participating. This was a crucial point. Put simply, the loot was not distributed evenly. Wu clan and 6 other righteous path clans were getting the benefits, while the other half of the clans were not participating. This was very reasonable. Gu immortals were moved by benefits. The fewer people who joined, the more they would gain, right? Thus, the result was, once the Immortal Opportunity business was exposed, all of the Gu immortals involved would not be able to get away. They would definitely be punished severely, because this was the rule of the righteous path. Fang Yuan could not step into this trap. Wu En and the rest wanted to rope him in, but Fang Yuan knew that once this was exposed, even if he was the owner of 2 immortal Gu in here and was the brother of Wu Yong, it was impossible for him to stay here. Fang Yuan was not going to take the risk. He went through all kinds of methods to infiltrate here. What was it for? It was for the dream realm. Especially when Wu Yong was not someone who favored his brother, Wu Yihai. His attitude would depend on the circumstances. But as long as Fang Yuan did not commit a mistake, and was the owner of the immortal Gu here, Wu Yong would be less likely to send him elsewhere. Fang Yuan could see all these details clearly. Thanks to the 500 years of his previous life. Even though his cultivation level was not high, he had been in the righteous path, demonic path, and even was a lone cultivator. He had incredibly rich life experiences. This allowed him to be in the righteous path while not being restrained by Wu Yihai's lone cultivator upbringing. He was clear about the political situation here, he knew what to do as a righteous path Gu immortal, and how to play this game of life. Thus, he recruited Lady White Rabbit. At the crucial moment, he could use her as scapegoat, saying that he did not know the matter. The immortal opportunity business profits that were for him were all given to Lady White Rabbit as well. He could not take the profits. Unlike demonic path or lone cultivators who would crazy after seeing some resources, the righteous path could not do this. Some benefits could be gained, but certain benefits were untouchable. But what if he rejected her? What if he gave Lady White Rabbit and Wu An the cold shoulder? That was worse. If Fang Yuan did that, even though there would not be a crisis after getting exposed, he would make enemies with 6 clans of Gu immortals. These people were beneficiaries. If Fang Yuan did not lead them, they would not dare to undergo this business. These people would definitely have poor feelings towards him. Fang Yuan would have just arrived at the Super Gu formation, and he would have already offended all of the political allies of Wu clan. And all those who did not participate in the immortal opportunity business, like Ba clan, Tai clan, or Shang clan, would be greedily eyeing up Fang Yuan. If he did that, he would be crippling his own network. It was an extremely stupid idea. The arrangement now was good. The immortal opportunity business continued, his political allies were happy, Ba clan and the rest were watching but could not do anything to Fang Yuan, who had no exploitable weaknesses. In the future, if this matter was exposed, Fang Yuan would push Lady White Rabbit into the spotlight, sacrificing her and saying that he was doting on her, but to think that she would do something like this behind his back. He was completely kept in the dark and ignorant. All in all, Fang Yuan had leeway to retreat or advance. As for those profits, Fang Yuan could only give up on them. He did not lack resources now. The Sovereign Immortal Aperture's cultivation resources would put most rank 7 Gu immortals to shame. Next, I can officially start exploring dream realms. Fang Yuan prepared to move. At the same time, in Northern Plains, the blood battle martial competition was reaching its end. Heavenly Lord Baizu and Yao Huang did not appear from start to finish, but their influence was heavily affecting the competition. Chu Du had an ugly expression. The situation was not in his favor. Hao Zhen had lost, he was holding his left shoulder with his right arm. His injuries were severe, his left arm was completely chopped off, the injury area was covered in Dao marks, it was hard to heal. Northern Plains' righteous path truly has a deep foundation. Chu Du sighed, he was in an extremely awkward position of having nobody to send out. Hao Zhen had an angry expression, he spoke with unwillingness to give up. Lord Chu Du, I have a friend who is stronger than me, but they are a secluded cultivator and have little fame. Chu Du was joyful and suspicious. Oh. Why did you not recommend them earlier? Hao Zhen had a difficult expression, he transmitted carefully, there is one bad point, they cultivate blood path. Chu Du's expression turned solemn, he rejected it without hesitation, absolutely not. Any blood path Gu immortal is a demonic path Gu immortal. This blood battle martial competition is a competition between righteous path forces, how can this blood path demonic immortal take part? Once they were involved, the other party could slander Chu Du's side for being demonic path members. Chu Du's hard work would completely go down the drain. This was the rule of the righteous path. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know in report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1227, Dragon Man. Chapter 1227, Dragon Man. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Our Combat Immortal sect is one of the 10 great ancient sections. Lad, since you were recommended by my senior brother, you must know about the selection rules of Combat Immortal sect, it will depend on your combat results. In Fang Yuan's vision, a Gu master was looking down imposingly at him, saying, if you want to officially become a disciple of Combat Immortal sect, you have to put up a good fight and be one of the 10 people left out of 100 people, to be qualified to join the sect. Combat Immortal sect. Why is it this kind of dream? Spectral Soul Demon Venerable didn't seem to have joined Combat Immortal sect during his life. It seems that he absorbed many souls in the door of life and death and obtained lots of cultivation experiences. This is why it formed like this. Fong Yuan speculated inwardly. At this time, the Gu Master took out 3 Gu worms. This first Gu worm looked like a caterpillar, it was light blue and the size of an adult's thumb, the head had a small horn on it. The second Gu worm was a butterfly with red patterns, emitting a warm aura. The third Gu worm was a toad, it seemed like a gray rock. Inside the dream realm, the Gu Master spoke, these 3 Gu worms are Water Arrow Gu, Fire Cloak Gu, and Spirit Saliva Gu. You are a rank 1 Gu Master, choose one. I can only choose one. Fong Yuan asked. Everyone can only choose one. The Gu Master in charge said expressionlessly. Fong Yuan nodded, he assessed carefully, Water Arrow Gu is for attacking, but it is not good among offensive Gu. Fire Cloak Gu is a defensive Gu, it grants me a cloak of fire that can burn enemies mildly, and Spirit Saliva Gu can be used to heal Gu Masters. If I can choose all of them, so be it. But if I can only choose one, it means this task needs cooperation. The earlier Gu Master said that there are 100 people but 10 spots. To explore this dream realm, I probably need to go ahead and get one of the 10 spots. I choose Fire Cloak Gu. Fong Yuan thought, answering soon after. He needed to race for time. His dream realm exploration time was very precious. The soul would continuously be expended in exploring dream realms. Once it weakens to a certain level, Fong Yuan's cognitive abilities would fall drastically. He would be unable to differentiate between reality and the dream, he would not know that he was dreaming. Eventually, his soul would be trapped in the dream, until he died. Fong Yuan would only have his body left in this world, like those pitiful Gu immortals of southern border earlier. Exploring dream realms was dangerous. Especially when Fong Yuan was exploring it alone, without anyone around to take care of him. If any problems occurred, he would be unable to save himself, that would be terrible. But who could Fong Yuan truly trust? To grow his attainment level, Fong Yuan had to pay a price and take some risks. Of course, I have my trump card, I am not recklessly charging around like other Gu immortals, needing to test their luck. Fong Yuan thought of this and immediately used an immortal killer move, Unravel Dream. Large numbers of Dream Path Mortal Gu were expended, a mystical power was displayed before Fong Yuan. A Gu Master suddenly appeared. The Gu Master from earlier was shocked, he asked the new Gu Master, Senior Brother, why are you here? The Senior Brother said, I came to take a look, Junior Brother, give the Spirit Saliva Gu to this child. But Senior Brother, this is cheating, if it is discovered. The Junior Brother was troubled. The Senior Brother laughed, don't worry, Spirit Saliva Gu cannot be detected on the outside if it is used secretly. This child also chose Fire Cloak Gu, when he is concealed by it, who can see that he is healing himself. The Junior Brother nodded, since Senior Brother is saying that, I have nothing else to say. Take it. Saying so, he tossed 2 Gu worms at Fong Yuan, Fire Cloak Gu and Spirit Saliva Gu. Fong Yuan had just received them when the surrounding dream realm faded, becoming the second scene. Unravel Dream's effect would change to fit the dream realm, creating effects that would benefit the user. Thus, Unravel Dream's actual effect would vary from dream realm to dream realm. But this time, after using Unravel Dream, I only obtained 1 extra mortal Gu in the dream. Unravel Dream is an immortal killer move, this effect was rather small. Fong Yuan thought about it, when he was exploring Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's dream realm, Unravel Dream had immediate results, like untying the wind not grass instantly, it was direct progress of the dream realm. Unlike here, after using it, he only gained 1 more mortal Gu. After all, Fong Yuan's cultivation level was rank 2 in this dream realm, he had limited primeval essence, he could not use Gu worms many times. Even though he obtained a second Gu, he had to use his primeval essence wisely, the actual help was not very big. Don't tell me that because this dream realm is too big, the rules of the dream realm are also stronger. Thus, external influences are less effective. In the 500 years of my previous life, a batch of Gu immortals also agreed with this point. Regardless of Fang Yuan's thoughts, the second scene had started. Fang Yuan found that he was in dusty fog, the road in front of him seemed to be at level ground. This is the internal space of a Gu formation, it can accommodate 100 people to fight, the Gu masters controlling the Gu formation can also observe our situation, huh? Fang Yuan analyzed as a young man in the fog approached him. Fang Yuan thought quickly, he called out, "Don't attack, friend, so many people are participating, we can ally first." Ally? You offended young Master Long, you want others to ally with you? The young man snickered as he shot out a water arrow. Fang Yuan's figure shifted, he nimbly dodged it, before pouncing. Seeing that Fang Yuan was getting close, the young man panicked, he used a second water arrow and tried to force Fang Yuan away. But Fang Yuan was experienced, seeing the young man raise his hand, he knew where the arrow was heading. Fang Yuan moved his feet and charged even quicker as the second water arrow missed him narrowly. The youngster quickly moved back, retreating while firing arrows. Fang Yuan observed patiently, even though he had a chance to get close, Fang Yuan purposely dodged instead. After a while, the young man was out of steam. Fang Yuan smiled, slowly walking forward, "Right now, I can disqualify you easily, how about it? Join me and we can work together to deal with the others, I am very sincere." "Humph." The young man snorted, "Just the two of us against 98 people, you are dreaming. You offended young Master Long, you wanted to snatch his woman, and you still want to get into combat immortal sect, you are simply dreaming. I would rather give up here than offend young Master Long foolishly." Fang Yuan's heart sank. In this case, wouldn't he have to deal with the other teenagers in this test alone? This young Master Long was truly a problem. No wonder earlier, Southern Border's righteous path Gu immortals suffered heavy losses. This dream realm is too difficult. It is harder than even Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's dream realm. Fang Yuan retreated, realizing that he was surrounded by 30 youngsters who had ganged up together, encircling him all around. "By Xiang Grotto Heaven. I succeeded." Bai Ningbing said plainly. His gaze was still cold, he had a normal expression, but his appearance was quite tattered, he was charred black, like lamb on a barbecue rack, having been roasted for a long time. When he spoke, smoke was coming out of his throat. Bai Xiang Heavenly Spirit looked at him, nodding, "You used your own body to contain the fire, subduing the raging wave rising dragon fire. Do you know how dangerous this is? There is only a small chance of success, if you fail, your entire body will turn into ash." Regardless, I succeeded. Bai Ningbing was still holding on desperately, when he spoke, each word was said with much difficulty, he was relying solely on his willpower. Bai Xiang Heavenly Spirit chuckled, "Since you succeeded, you are now the new owner of this grotto heaven. Greetings to young master." Bai Ningbing nodded, he did not say anything, he felt like he would faint if he uttered another word. But if he fainted, according to Ing Wuxie's words, he would be unable to control the raging wave rising dragon fire in his body, he would be burned to a crisp instantly. At this time, Bai Xiang Heavenly Spirit said, "Young master, you are in a dangerous situation now, if you are careless, you will die completely, not even your soul will survive. If you were the blazing glory lightning brilliance physique, it would be better, but you had to be the northern dark ice soul physique. I have a cultivation method that suits your current state. This Gu refinement method uses the Gu immortal themselves as Gu material, together with the raging wave rising dragon fire, you will be refined together, young master will leave the human race and become one of the variant humans, a dragon man." Dragon man? Bai Ningbing stared with wide eyes, thinking, the Legends of Renzu has no mention of any dragon man. There is such a variant human race. Bai Ningbing did not speak, but Bai Xiang Heavenly Spirit knew his doubts. The Heavenly Spirit continued, "It is indeed not inside the Legends of Renzu, because the variant human dragon man was created by a human great expert, Duke Long, the original intention was to prolong lifespan. Duke Long is a heavenly court Gu immortal, he has extremely high battle strength, like sword immortal Bo Qing in the past. He brought about the method of humans alike. Dragons. 1. He fused refinement path and transformation path to create a brand new variant human race, the Dragon Man. Bai Ningbing's shock increased a bit more. He thought, who is this Duke Long? Even though I only became an immortal recently, knowledge is not my weakness. I know much more than ordinary Gu immortals. Duke Long is someone on par with Bo Qing. How could he not be in historical records? Is there no such person recorded in Gu immortal history? Is Bai Xiang heavenly spirit speaking rubbish? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1228, Duke Long. Chapter 1228, Duke Long. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Bai Ningbing knew that a land spirit or heavenly spirit was formed by the Gu immortal's obsession fused with the immortal aperture's heavenly power. It was a mystical existence. Because of the obsession, land spirits and heavenly spirits had an ownership acknowledgement requirement, and they could not lie. But although land spirits and heavenly spirits could not lie, that did not mean they could not spout nonsense. If land spirits or heavenly spirits obtain wrong information, but they think it is real, when they say it, it is not a lie. Bai Xiang heavenly spirit's words were quite unbelievable. Bo Qing was Bo Qing because he was a type of person rarely seen in human history. What was Bo Qing's title? The pseudo-immortal venerable who split the 5 regions with his sword. It was fortunate for the people in the world that love changed him. He was publicly recognized by all Gu immortals across different eras that he was at a level second to only rank 9 Gu venerables. Such a person was extremely dazzling, like the moon in the night sky, even over the span of history with countless geniuses. If this Duke Long was a great expert at the level of Bo Qing, how could he not be in historical records? Bai Ningbing was full of doubts. But at this time, Bai Xiang heavenly spirit did not answer his doubts. He asked, "Young master, your life is in great danger. We can only use the humans alike Dragon's Gu refinement method to turn yourself into a dragon man and resolve your crisis. However, this method is rather dangerous." Bai Xiang heavenly spirit said this as he frowned, sighing as he said, "You must know that Gu refinement has very strict requirements towards the materials. A proficient refinement path expert would consider all of the Dao marks that were inside each Gu material. And the humans alike Dragon's Gu refinement method uses the Gu immortal themselves as the immortal material. But immortal materials like these vary from person to person. Every Gu immortal has different number of Dao marks of differing paths. Thus, this Gu refinement method has a low chance of success. If young master had the blazing glory lightning brilliance physique, or if you cultivated transformation path or refinement path, there is a greater chance. But you are on the other extreme, being the northern dark ice soul physique. Sigh, if you use this method, the chance of surviving is extremely minute. During the Gu refinement process, all of your Dao marks will be affected. Young master, all of the ice and snow path Dao marks in your body might vanish completely. Bai Ningbing's eyes shined brightly instead. My ice and snow path Dao marks will vanish. Does that mean the information path alliance agreement on me, and the transformation path Dao marks, will also vanish? He was very stirred up. All along, what troubled him most were the transformation path Dao marks. Back then, in southern borders Qing Mao Mountain, because of yin-yang rotation Gu, he turned from a guy to a girl. Now, once he used the phantom aperture, he would turn into a Gu immortal, his transformation path Dao marks would be suppressed and he would become a male again. If he did not use the phantom aperture and turn back to a mortal, his transformation path Dao marks would turn him into a girl again. Of course, the Dao marks from Shadow Sex Information Path Alliance Agreement were Bai Ningbing's biggest restraint at the moment. Was Bai Ningbing someone who would submit to others? All along, he merely had no methods or ways to break free. Use this method. Bai Ningbing did not hesitate, he struggled intensely and uttered 3 words. Central Continent, Heavenly Court. A female immortal was holding an information path Gu worm and inspecting it carefully. She had a graceful figure with hair that extended to her waist, and was adorned in a beautiful purple robe. Her eyes were like deep pools, with a sense of sorrow shrouding her face. It was the Wisdom Path Great Expert who replaced Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord, the temporary leader of Heavenly Court, Fairy Z Wei. She retracted her attention from the Information Path Gu worm as her lips curled into a smile. Love Gu actually acknowledged Zhao Lianyun. Interesting. Fairy Z Wei was not surprised. She knew many historical secrets. Love Gu had never been reliable in history. In the past, it could acknowledge the Inkman Mo Yao, and now, was it really that strange that it acknowledged the otherworldly demon Zhao Lianyun? Spirit Affinity House's Supreme Elders cannot decide on this matter, so they are pushing the decision to me. They have gotten smarter. Fairy Z Wei sighed to herself. Spirit Affinity House was not having a good time recently. During the Battle of Tian Mountain, Bo Qing, even though he was dead, had become an immortal zombie, playing a crucial role in that battle. Long ago, he had joined Spirit Affinity House as Sword Immortal Bo Qing. Bo Qing's sword lights rampaged over Central Continent. It caused great damage to Central Continent, the 10 great ancient sects, and even Heavenly Court. After the Battle of Tian Mountain ended, Spirit Affinity House endured immense pressure because of it. Whether they should make Zhao Lianyun the current generation fairy of Spirit Affinity House, these Spirit Affinity House Supreme Elders could not decide. It was a hard decision regardless of whether they make her the fairy or not. Pushing this difficult problem to Fairy Z Wei, they could avoid the responsibility themselves. Fairy Z Wei did not feel angry about it. Because she was from Spirit Affinity House in the past. Fairy Z Wei was once a Gu immortal from Spirit Affinity House. Because of her great talent, after she became rank 8, she was accepted into Heavenly Court. Even though the 10 great ancient sects were lower-level sects of Heavenly Court, their relationship was not as simple as superiors and subordinates. Because many Heavenly Court Gu immortals did not forget their roots, the sect that they came from, when descendants from these sects enter Heavenly Court, they would become natural political allies of these Gu immortals. Thus, Fairy Z Wei sided with Spirit Affinity House, and was willing to settle this problem for them. In fact, she and Fairy Bai Qing had some bloodline relationship. And Fairy Bai Qing was Feng Jin Huang's mother, and Feng Jin Huang was vying with Zhao Lianyun for the position of fairy. Neither would relent. If Spirit Affinity House's Supreme Elders acknowledged Zhao Lianyun, they would be denying Feng Jin Huang the position. Thus, they gave this problem to Fairy Z Wei and let her decide. This problem was a small matter to Fairy Z Wei. She was about to use the Information Path Gu worm to reply when she suddenly felt a tremor. This tremor was mild. Fairy Z Wei almost thought that she was imagining things. But soon, a tremor occurred again, at an even greater intensity than before. Fairy Z Wei stood up in shock. She had to be shocked. Because she was in Heavenly Court now, this was such an important place that was managed for countless years, the defense was extremely tight. How could tremors occur for no reason? The tremors continued. This situation attracted the attention of many Gu immortals. Granny Xia stopped refining Gu. She had an expression of shock. Wei Lingyang walked out of his hall and looked around. Fairy Z Wei could not sit anymore. She left the hall and heard some dragon roars vaguely in the tremors. The dragon roars were getting louder. Heavenly Court was shaking with even more intensity now. Under Fairy Z Wei's shocked gaze, a dragon-shaped pillar of light soared to the sky from deep within Heavenly Court. That place, is that deep within the immortal graveyard? Don't tell me, a senior has awakened. Fairy Z Wei frowned. At this time, Granny Xia and Wei Lingyang came to her. Such a scene inside the immortal graveyard, it must be a senior from Heavenly Court. But I wonder which one. Granny Xia deduced. Wei Lingyang said, the immortal graveyard is unfathomable and mysterious, even we do not know how many Gu immortals are slumbering in it. But Heavenly Court has experienced such huge tremors, this person who woke up must be very extraordinary. Granny Xia nodded. She was also someone who had woken up from hibernation, but when she woke up, Heavenly Court was peaceful and quiet, without any commotion. It was a clear contrast to now. Fairy Z Wei breathed in deeply. We'll know if we go and see. The three immortals flew deep into the immortal graveyard, only to see a huge pit that had formed on the plain grassland. Inside the pit, there was a withered and weak old man. The old man saw the 3 Gu immortals and quickly opened a slit of his eyes with much difficulty, saying weakly, "Water, water." Fairy Ziwei quickly went ahead and used her healing methods. Granny Xia and Wei Lingyang looked at each other. The commotion was huge, but to think that this person was so weak when they saw him. This was really surprising. My healing methods are not working. At this time, Fairy Ziwei frowned as she spoke. Wei Lingyang quickly went ahead and used all his methods, but nothing was working on the old man. Wei Lingyang said solemnly, "Not good, this senior's body is very strange, my methods are not working. Senior's life force is dwindling, at this rate, he will die in less than a few minutes." Fairy Ziwei's eyes shined. She analyzed, "Earlier, Senior said water, it must be a method to save him. Ordinary water would not work, then what water does he need?" Granny Xia was a refinement path expert. She used her healing methods as she said, "There are 3 fires in this world, and also 3 waters. They are all rank 9 immortal materials, Heavenly Court has stock of all of them, bring them here." But the 3 types of water had no effect. The old man could barely breathe, he was dying. The 3 immortals were anxious, what should they do? Fairy Ziwei suddenly pointed at the old man's head. Senior's forehead had 2 protrusions. What are these rock-like things? Granny Xia was reminded as inspiration flashed in her mind, "I know what water it is." She took out the true dragon heavenly water, pouring this rank 8 immortal material into the old man's mouth. The old man obtained this water and his life force surged, his body started inflating, soon, his throat started moving, he had the strength to drink this water himself. The result was immediate. The 3 immortals were overjoyed. After the old man drank 500 grams of true dragon heavenly water, he pushed Granny Xia's hands away. Granny Xia understood and stopped feeding him. The old man stood up shakily. He was different from before. His dry skin had been puffed up, his entire facial shape had changed, he no longer looked like a skeleton. He opened his aged eyes as he looked at the 3 immortals, sighing, "This is the last time I can awaken, true dragon heavenly water is not effective now, 500 grams is enough, any more is a waste. I sensed that someone was using the humans alike Dragon's Gu refinement method, I can smell traces of fate, I had no choice but to wake up." You are Duke Long." Fairy Ziwei stared with wide-opened eyes, tongue-tied. "That would be me. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible." Chapter 1229, Love Gu, 1/2. Chapter 1229, Love Gu, 1/2. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Zhao Lianyun was brought into a small secret room in her daze. Where is this? She opened her eyes, looking around. This secret room was extremely quiet, a bone-chilling silence was embedded into every brick in this room, and every inch of the wall. The secret room was not bright, it was dim like only a candle was lit, sending out faint traces of light. Zhao Lianyun could barely see anything. "Come here." From the traces of light, an aged voice spoke. Zhao Lianyun followed the direction of the voice. As she got closer, she saw an elderly person who was as aged as that voice. She was the first Supreme Elder of Spirit Affinity House. First Supreme Elder looked at Zhao Lianyun with a deep glance, focusing her attention on Love Gu, which was on Zhao Lianyun's shoulder. Her gaze moved slightly, she quickly calmed down. "Kneel down." First Supreme Elder said. Zhao Lianyun felt that even though this old woman did not feel special, she had an immense authority, her calm words carried force that made people feel obliged to obey her. Thus, Zhao Lianyun lowered her head as she saw a cushion on the ground. She knelt down on the cushion, her upper body was straight as she looked at the old woman. The old woman said, "Look ahead." Zhao Lianyun looked ahead, she saw that the secret room was getting bright. Zhao Lianyun gasped as she stared with wide-opened eyes. Because she saw that on the wall in front, there were countless jade-like small tablets. These are Life Tablet Gu, each of the names there is a certain fairy of Spirit Affinity House in the past. From the first generation until now. First Supreme Elder said slowly. Zhao Lianyun's breathing intensified, her gaze swept past this wall. There were countless tablets, she was dazzled. At the top left-hand corner, there was a tablet, with the first-generation fairy's name written, Shui and I. Second-generation fairy, Sun Yu. Third-generation fairy, Hui Xian. Zhao Lianyun looked at these names, her breathing became rough. She was like a child, staring at the night sky that was flickering with countless stars. She knew that these people were all past stars in the Gu immortal world. Every generation of Spirit Affinity House's fairies was a Gu immortal that was famous in Central Continent. They were extraordinary and unrivaled. They were like pearls that were linked together, from the past to the present. They weaved Spirit Affinity House's future, leaving behind dazzling brilliance and glory throughout history. Zhao Lianyun was dazed. At this moment, First Supreme Elder spoke. From now onwards, you are the current generation fairy of Spirit Affinity House. Your life tablet Gu is already at the lowest position. At this moment, Zhao Lianyun's heart froze. She stared with wide-opened eyes, looking at the old lady. She was overjoyed but had endless doubts. How can this be? Am I dreaming? According to Spirit Affinity House's rules, I am not qualified yet. She said this until she thought of something. She turned her gaze away as she looked at Love Gu on her shoulder. Is it because of this Gu? First Supreme Elder nodded slightly. This is Love Gu. You have already received Love Gu's acknowledgement. After Zhao Lianyun fainted, when she woke up, she was already inside this secret room. She was unsure of what Love Gu looked like, but she knew that Love Gu was the signature Gu of Spirit Affinity House. Is this Love Gu? Zhao Lianyun's body shook, her voice was also off-pitch. First Supreme Elder nodded again. Zhao Lianyun breathed intensely. Intense joy was in her heart. It slowly oozed out as she felt like fortune had hit her in her head. But this bliss was too sudden, it was too great. She did not feel any joy, she felt some fear and uneasiness. She was afraid that everything was fake. She was worried that this was just a dream after she fainted. Thus, she stared with wide-opened eyes, asking First Supreme Elder nervously, why? This why contained too many questions. Why did Love Gu choose her? Why did she become Spirit Affinity House's fairy? Why did all this happen? First Supreme Elder did not answer her. She sighed deeply as she said slowly, you must have read the legends of Renzu, among which, one chapter said this. Renzu obtained love, courage, and betrayal. He was no longer unable to progress due to fear. He continued to move forward. On this day, he walked on his road, hearing a voice behind, Oh Renzu, I finally found you. Slow down, wait for me. Renzu stopped moving, turning around. He saw a snowman running up to him. What is it, snowman? Renzu asked curiously. The snowman said, Oh Renzu, I finally found you. I am the strongest snowman in my tribe. Snowmen are said to be afraid of fire. I want to prove that it is untrue. I traveled the world. I have already conquered the bright light glorious ring fire in the sky, the azure divine stone furnace fire in the earth, and the raging wave rising dragon fire in the sea. But I heard that there is a fourth type of fire in this world, called the fire of love. Once it burns, it can turn all life forms in this world into cinders. I do not believe it. I heard that you have just obtained Love Gu, thus I wanted to try it. Fire of love. Renzu was surprised, he was hearing it for the first time. Thus, he called out Love Gu, asking, Oh Gu, can you emit the fire of love? Love Gu replied, I can, and I cannot. Renzu and the snowman were curious. They asked, what do you mean by can and cannot? Love Gu explained, I can because I am necessary in order to emit the fire of love. But I cannot because I alone am not sufficient, 2 hearts are needed. 2 hearts. The snowman was worried. She took out her heart from her chest. This heart was huge and tough, it was emitting strong pressure. The snowman said, This is my heart of domination, it is a pity that I only have 1 heart. Renzu said, don't worry, I have a heart too. Renzu originally had one heart, but he gave it to Hope Gu. He next obtained a heart of loneliness, Self Gu was residing within it. He also had a heart of discontent. Thus, right now, he took out the heart of discontent. The heart of discontent was dry and shriveled, it was small and weak, because this heart had little blood left. Renzu had once used almost all of his heart blood in ordinary abyss, to grow the grass and trees of achievement. Love Gu flew into the heart of discontent and flew out, it flew into the heart of domination and flew out again. It flew into the sky and said, all right, you want the fire of love, let these two hearts clash. The snowman and Renzu took out their respective hearts, putting them together. Crackle, sparks were created. The sparks grew rapidly, turning into a blazing flame. Fire of love. The fire of love burned on Renzu's heart of discontent, it instantly turned this heart into ashes. Renzu was stunned. Love Gu said, love has a price, it makes people willing to sacrifice. The snowman laughed, oh Renzu, thankfully you have two hearts, otherwise, without a heart, you would die. The snowman turned to look at the heart of domination in her hand. The fire of love enveloped this heart, but this heart shone brighter and brighter. The snowman was nonchalant, oh what, this fire of love only has an impressive appearance, it neither has the heat of bright light glorious ring fire, or the heaviness of azure divine stone furnace fire, or the chaos of raging wave rising dragon fire. As she said, she placed the heart of domination into her chest. Next, her body started bursting out in flames, she started melting like snowflakes under the sun. She turned pale from shock, she quickly patted and attempted to put out the fire of love. But the fire of love could not be extinguished. Eventually, the snowman completely melted, only her heart was left, burning in raging flames. Renzu was extremely shocked, he felt that this snowman was very strong, to think that she would vanish like this. The fire of love is so scary. Renzu was shocked. Love Gu said, the result of love varies from heart to heart. The heart of the snowman was domination, but you had the heart of discontent, and it was completely burned from the fire. Thus, this was the result. Actually, there are good results that can occur when the fire of love burns. The results of love varied, each experience of love was a risk and gamble. Renzu suddenly thought of something, becoming stirred up, oh Love Gu, you said that love can make people willing to sacrifice. This is wonderful, I will fall in love with the feathermen and make them willing to fly for me, so that they can save my daughter from ordinary abyss. Right at this moment, a voice could be heard, Father, Father. From the burning flames of the heart of domination, a boy jumped out. He was Blazing Glory Lightning Brilliance. Blazing Glory Lightning Brilliance jumped into Renzu's arms as he said, Father, Father, so I have a sister as well. I support you, let's go save sister. Renzu was extremely overjoyed, he rubbed Blazing Glory Lightning Brilliance's head as he said, my son, you are so smart and sensible. Renzu brought Blazing Glory Lightning Brilliance and went on a journey again, not long after, they returned to the gathering spot of the feathermen. Renzu took out his heart of loneliness, saying to the feathermen, do you all have hearts? The feathermen answered, we all have the heart of freedom. Renzu laughed, then let us fall in love, I have a heart too, as well as Love Gu. The feathermen shook their heads, the heart of freedom will be completely burned in the fire of love. The process of pursuing love was also the process of losing freedom. Renzu was persistent, the results of love vary from hearts to hearts. Don't just look at one heart, my heart of loneliness is part of the process too. But no matter how Renzu urged, the feathermen would not agree. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1230, Love Gu, 2 halves. Chapter 1230, Love Gu, 2 halves. Translator. Atlas Studios. Editor. Atlas Studios. Renzu was helpless, he asked Love Gu, oh Gu, they don't want to love me, you have to help me, and ignite the fire of love in our hearts. Love Gu sighed, this is beyond my abilities. I cannot force others to love, no matter what heart, it has to collide on its own free will. Renzu shook his head. No, this is a good chance to save my daughter, I cannot give up. Self-Gu, I will rely on you. Self-Gu nodded, using its own strength. It had once eaten a mouthful of strength Gu, right now, Renzu had his own strength. Thus, these feathermen were all captured by Renzu, their hearts to dug out and used to collide with Renzu's heart. But no matter how they collided, there were no hearts that created the spark of love. Love Gu sighed, "Oh Renzu, forcing others to love is impossible, you will only create hatred." As it said that, a Gu worm appeared before Renzu. Renzu took a look, it was Hatred Gu indeed. Hatred Gu made all of the feathermen feel hatred. They shouted, "Oh Renzu, you are too much, you are bullying us, we will make you pay the price." Thus, these feathermen flew up together, shining worms were flying out of their bodies, they were wild Freedom Gu. The Freedom Gu fused together into a gigantic Freedom Gu. This Freedom Gu easily took away Renzu's Love Gu. Henceforth, love is free. This giant Freedom Gu said. Renzu's Self Gu quickly flew out, it wanted to snatch Love Gu, but it could not overpower Freedom Gu, it only managed to take a bite of Love Gu. Self Gu said angrily, "Love also belongs to oneself." After Zhao Lianyun heard First Supreme Elder's words, she was still in a daze. Stories in The Legends of Renzu were widely spread. Zhao Lianyun had seen them many times in her childhood, but she always thought of them as fictitious tales. As a matter of fact, she did not expect that this strict granny would talk to her about The Legends of Renzu in such a heavy and serious atmosphere. Spirit Affinity House's First Supreme Elder saw Zhao Lianyun's expression and knew that she had never paid close attention to The Legends of Renzu. Thus, First Supreme Elder said, "The Love Gu on your shoulder is rank 9, but it has a major flaw." "What flaw?" Zhao Lianyun asked. "It cannot be refined." First Supreme Elder said solemnly. "What do you mean?" "Even Gu immortals cannot refine it?" Zhao Lianyun asked. First Supreme Elder smiled, "Not to mention Gu immortals, even rank 9 venerables cannot. In history, many venerables have tried. Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had attempted to refine this Gu for 3 years in a row without pause, but he still failed miserably." Zhao Lianyun heard this secret and stared with wide-opened eyes. So there are things in this world that immortal venerables or demon venerables cannot do. She exclaimed. Venerables only have the strongest battle strength, invincible in this world. But they are not omnipotent. In the past, Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable and Giant Sun Immortal Venerable had to ask Long Hair Ancestor for help in terms of Gu refinement. This is an obvious conclusion. First Supreme Elder spoke slowly. Thus, Love Gu cannot be controlled, it is free and nobody can give it orders. First Supreme Elder concluded. But why did it? Zhao Lianyun did not know what to say, she looked at Love Gu on her shoulder. In her vision, Love Gu was so dazzling and bright. First Supreme Elder said, "This is the acknowledgement of Love Gu, this situation is rare, but it has happened quite a number of times before. The last time was Fairy Mo Yao. Why did it acknowledge me?" Zhao Lianyun was curious. First Supreme Elder shook her head, "I am not sure. But our sect has concluded 2 points. Firstly, a person has to believe in love to gain its acknowledgement, this is the foundation. Secondly, someone's love has to reach an intense level, the greater your love, the higher the chances of gaining Love Gu's acknowledgement. Is that so?" Zhao Lianyun blinked as she listened. She realized it was because she loved Ma Hongyun so deeply, even willing to give up her own life, that Love Gu came and acknowledged her. Why did this not happen for Feng Jinhuang? Because she had no lover. Love was not familial affection or friendship. First Supreme Elder continued, "Precisely because Love Gu cannot be controlled, to make use of it, one needs Love Gu's acknowledgement. Thus, there is a rule in our sect since we were created. Anyone who gains Love Gu's acknowledgement, be it female or male, would be our sect's current generation fairy." Zhao Lianyun blinked, "There are male fairies too?" First Supreme Elder smiled, "Our sect has a large proportion of females, but we also have males. Why would we not have them? Look at that tablet in the center, named Xianxia, at the bottom right corner, with Qian Yuan Liang. These are all people dedicated to love in our sect's history. Actually, Love Gu has many special effects. For example, it has a different appearance as seen by different people. How does it appear to you now? Zhao Lianyun replied honestly, dazzling with multicolored rainbows. First Supreme Elder nodded, to my sight, it is gray and unattractive, like a rock by the roadside. How could this be? First Supreme Elder smiled lightly, deep wisdom hidden in her eyes. I stopped believing in love long ago, thus, Love Gu looks like that to me. In the generations of fairies, Love Gu has always looked different, some see clear water, some see peach blossoms, there were countless forms that were observed. And also, Love Gu has varying effects. Please enlighten me. Zhao Lianyun said. First Supreme Elder continued, normally speaking, a Gu worm, be it mortal or immortal, has only one effect. Like water arrow Gu, it can only shoot water arrows. But Love Gu is different, it can be said to have unlimited effects. It can shoot fire, heal, or provide defense for instance. Zhao Lianyun became overjoyed as she listened, so amazing. First Supreme Elder shook her head, Love Gu is a rank 9 Gu, it is naturally extraordinary. It has unlimited effects, but it cannot be controlled. If you want it to attack, it will bring you to fly away. If you want to defend, it will heal you. Often, when you want it to work, it does absolutely nothing. When you do not want it to activate, it will come out and unleash its might. Zhao Lianyun was a little disheartened, but she soon gathered her spirits. Even so, it is a rank 9 immortal Gu, any of the effects used must be extraordinary. First Supreme Elder said, you are right, but you forgot something, strength cannot be gained from nothing, you have to pay a price. Every time Love Gu is used, it will take something away from you. Zhao Lianyun was nervous, what thing? The most common thing is immortal essence. But you are not a Gu immortal, it might take away your beauty, your eyesight, or your lifespan. First Supreme Elder said grimly. Zhao Lianyun's expression was pale, she looked at the Love Gu on her shoulder again. But now, her gaze was very different from before. This immortal Gu might end up accelerating my death. If that is the case, I need to make good use of my time. Zhao Lianyun made a resolute decision. She mustered her spirits, saying to First Supreme Elder, even if I have to pay a big price, I will save Ma Hongyun. Elder, if I become Spirit Affinity House's current generation fairy, can I use the sect's power to return to Northern Plains? First Supreme Elder did not answer Zhao Lianyun immediately. She had a complex expression. A while ago, Heavenly Court's Duke Long awakened. When news got out, the 10 great ancient sects were stirred. Duke Long was on par with Bo Qing in terms of strength. With just his own power, he created a brand new race, the Dragon Man. In other words, he was the ancestor of Dragon Men. He had a legendary life, but his reputation was not high, buried deep in history. Even in the 10 great ancient sects, barely anyone knew of him. Duke Long had great seniority, he was unbelievably old. When he woke up, Fairy Zi Wei immediately gave up her position as leader, handing it to Duke Long. The other Heavenly Court Gu immortals were all in agreement. Duke Long used information path methods and understood the situation. He immediately ordered for Zhao Lianyun to be Spirit Affinity House's current generation fairy. Not just that, Duke Long even gave Zhao Lianyun a phantom aperture, turning her into a Gu immortal. More absurdly, he even ordered the 10 great ancient sects to cooperate with Zhao Lianyun, to bring a team to Northern Plains and save Ma Hongyun after some time. The 10 great ancient sects were in tumult, but they all obeyed him without objection. Because of historical reasons, nobody dared to question Duke Long's arrangements regarding Love Gu. Such news were not for Zhao Lianyun to know about. First Supreme Elder also did not want her to know. Zhao Lianyun was kneeling before her now, but she had fainted for a few days already. She would not know that the 10 great ancient sects were engaged in a contest regarding the huge storm surrounding her. Zhao Lianyun saw that First Supreme Elder did not answer her, she became very nervous. She was afraid that First Supreme Elder would say no. But First Supreme Elder soon said, Zhao Lianyun, you are an otherworldly demon who obtained the thieving heaven true inheritance. Perhaps you might be one of the most unique fairies in Spirit Affinity House. And maybe because of your special traits. Don't worry, Heavenly Court has been alerted by this. The 10 great ancient sects will go ahead and form a team consisting of you as the core, to rescue your lover Ma Hongyun in Northern Plains. What? Zhao Lianyun stared with wide-opened eyes. Hearing this, she was extremely joyful and surprised. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible.